This Monday.com ad was created by a team of people and AI agents. The agents wrote the copy and managed the timelines, while our human creative director made sure it all made sense. Easy. Create your own AI agent today on Monday.com.
Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/libsyn today. That's jerry.ai/libsyn.
Brando Babini, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you on the show. So you are the founder of Youth4Youth. Can you tell us a little bit about the company and what your role is?
Yeah, for sure. So Youth4Youth is a training, mentorship, and showcase program for soccer in the United States. And it is completely player-led, right? So it's run by active professional and college players. And the idea is you take younger players and you guide them through every step of the pathway to get them to professional or collegiate soccer football. And my role, I founded it when I was 16 after a realization that I wasn't going pro and I needed more support and I was missing a big brother in the game. And I asked myself, how do we systemize that? And so, but I really wear all the hats. I like to say when we started, I had no credentials, no coaching license, no capital. So took out my iPhone, started training kids for free, making content. And then before you know it, we started going viral, built out this kind of content engine for players. And that's how we kind of funneled them in and built the program to where it's at now.
Love it. I know you're a Gen Z-led model. You mentioned it's a player-led model, but also a Gen Z-led model. So why do you think that's a winning concept?
I think there's number one, the football space in the US is becoming increasingly saturated, right? As the game grows, especially on a commercial side. And there's a lot of different people kind of in the game trying to grow things around the game, trying to make money, trying to sort of ride the wagon, which is good. It's good for the growth of the game. I think what we need to maintain is an emphasis on youth, because at the end of the day, the future of football is always in the youth. Even if you look at the World Cup right now, you have this parallel of Ronaldo and Messi scoring a brace, and you have Mbappe, Haaland, then you have Yamal, and you kind of see that segue. So I think what really positions us in a different space than everybody else is the fact that we are always, even the oldest person in our program, right, understands what it means to be a youth player and has real proximity to the game, has really experienced it and walked through those doors and kind of has the ability to hold those doors open, because I like to say they still have the key.
Yeah. I know your company was built also to challenge the traditional play-to-play model. So what was something that convinced you that the system needed disrupting or change?
I think I have seen too many players in my journey as a player, right? When I was playing academy football, have to stop playing club completely because, a lot of the clubs are nonprofit, but they have a sort of financial aid budget that it's difficult for them to go over. And I've seen many times over and over again, players kind of drop off. I mean, I'm passionate about the US competing as a nation, right? And I think to compete as a nation, you need free football, right? And MLS has done a great job building out 30 free academies with all their pro clubs. Now the question is, how do we build out that for USL Championship, for USL 1? If you look at free academies per capita, right? And so I think if you look at where the best national team players came from, they all came from free academies, right? So the more we build out free academies, the better position we are to maybe eventually win a World Cup or at least be a serious nation competing. In terms of our program, my biggest thing was, hey, we're a supplemental program. Some players pay for services, but I never want to be that program that is cost prohibitive, right? That cuts a player out because, hey, they can't pay, right? So if a player can't pay a single dollar, that's totally fine. If a player needs us to call an Uber for them to get into the city and train with us, if the player is at that level, we will make that happen. For me, you cut too much talent out and you cut too much. If you think about bringing, obviously sports is entertainment and it's commercial. If you commercialize the idea of free services for these players, yes, it's not cash flow, but it's long-term investment, right? Who knows who these players become and how they kind of feed back into whatever programs they came out of.
Yeah, definitely. So do you think that they pay to play model is broken, or is there like a fix to it?
The model itself is the flaw. At its core, there's nothing inherently wrong with paying to play a sport, right? That's why I said some players pay with, like for us, what's inherently wrong is cutting players out when they can no longer pay, right? And that's where you see that over and over again in the US. And that's why I think we fall behind. You need to maximize the talent pool at every step of the journey, right? So the recreational school programs, those should be free. Let's say you have 1 million kids playing soccer. And then the club programs, those should be free, 500,000, right? And then the MLS, like, and so on. But what you have instead is you have a cost-based program. So from 1 million, we're at 500,000 kids. And then now, instead of cutting in half, now we're saying to the next level, only 20,000 can pay, right? And then you're continuously cutting out talent that, you're not turning over all the stones, right? And who knows how many diamonds in the rough there has been in the US that just didn't ever have the opportunity because they didn't have the means.
For sure. And you mentioned that you have some guys playing for free. You might call them an Uber. How is your financial model to make this go around?
In the beginning, we were thinking about, okay, do we do nonprofit? Do we incorporate? And eventually it became pretty clear that if you build out a for-profit business, right, and operate at a healthy margin, the financial burden of like scholarship and financial aid, it's not a burden, right? Like you have a healthier enough margin where one player coming for free, two players coming for free, 5, 10, 100 players really doesn't damage your margin that much, right? For me, we keep the program selective. It's not like anyone can join, right? It's if you're at the level, and then it's can you pay, can you not pay? Doesn't matter. We work with you guys. But my biggest thing is like maintaining the most meritocratic model possible is the best for the program, because then the level is the highest and the development upside is the highest.
You choose more based on skill level versus their economic abilities.
Skill level and fit and mentality. That there's a lot of different. For me, I always say trajectory. That's my word, right? Like, is this player kind of like this, or is it like that? Are we on an upwards trajectory, or are we kind of this player maybe could improve, maybe not? I have players who maybe are less technical, but I see the way they approach the game. I see the way they train, and we want to take risks on them as well.
Because that's hard to see on like a paper. If someone admits you're having these interviews with these kids to see where they're at, and
so how it works usually. So players see our content, and then they kind of comment a keyword like with ManyChat, and then they send us application, highlight tape. If they're younger, we don't expect a highlight tape. We bring them in to try out, right? If we like them, we give them a phone call after the tryout, and we say, hey, we want the player in the program. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it costs. Can you pay? No, yes. What are the goals for the players? And kind of how do we create the most comprehensive plan to get that player to that goal, right? Whether it be professional football, collegiate football, to get to the next level for their club, whatever it might be.
So what ages are we talking about?
10 to 18, really. And then what happens at 18, like these players graduate the program, but then they come work for the program, right? Like they kind of give back to the community. And it's funny, I have players who are like, hey, like, so grateful for what the program has done for us. Like, what do you need? Like, any way we can help, like, we'll do it for free. And I'm like, no, the whole point now is that like, we can give back to you as well as a college player, as a pro player, right? Because at the end of the day, like playing football, especially if you're not playing at the highest level, you might be playing professionally, but playing football is often not enough, right? If you think of like career-wise, these guys have to do a lot of other things. And so this is like a very clear outlet for them to stay around the game and find value in other ways.
So what advantages do you think that to have this Gen Z led with the players coming back versus a traditional soccer institution?
We supplement traditional soccer institutions. I think those are necessary. I think at the end of the day, like I'm not going and competing in like a professional academy league on the weekends, but I think what we offer that clubs don't have is we're agnostic to the player's current performance. At the end of the day, the club has to think in its own interest, as it should, right? Because it's, hey, this player's not performing. We don't see any potential future transfer value. They're not helping us win. Unfortunately, yes, this is a community. Yes, this is a brotherhood, sisterhood, but this player can no longer be here. Versus us, we ride the highs and we ride the lows. And so I think it's important to have somebody who is by your side, is kind of shoulder to shoulder with you, no matter what's happening in your journey.
Yeah. I know that like on a club side that you often talk about player development, but often team success is prioritized. So how can you make sure that you're having a player first development, and how do you work with that?
When we bring a player in the program, like we like to look at their game tape. We try to understand like, hey, where are you at? And what do you need? And how do we structure a session so we're not doing build out, we're not doing like just pure possession based sessions. We're trying to maximize your touches on the ball and like the right touches, right? Let's say you're a striker, we're trying to get you finishing in the box as much as possible. You know, we're trying to get you to score every tap and every opportunity you have. Let's say you're a winger, like I want to put you in as many 1v1 situations as you can. Same thing for a defender. If you're a center mid, like we're working on scanning awareness. So we really cater the development process to every single player. At a club, they like to do the same, but it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of like you having 3 or 4 team training sessions a week. Like you have a game, you need to do a tactical walkthrough, you need to do a recovery day. And then one day you're doing possession, and like there's not enough time at the club unless it's like, you know, professional clubs, they train the players before and after on their individual things, right? And academies, some of them do, some of them don't, but it would be naive to think as a player, as a mistake I often made, like just going to club training is enough. It's never enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking about it. You said that someone who graduates at 18, they come back as a coach. Yeah. Like if you're having a player from 10 to 18, like how do you look at something and think that, that's a success? Is it that they, you know, go out in the world and play professionally? Is it that they come back as a coach and help you guys out? Or how do you look? What's success for you in that way?
I love that question because people always ask me, so what's your metric? I don't have a metric. Like, did this player have opportunities in their life that would have otherwise not materialized if they hadn't been playing football? So I have players who went on to play college soccer, Division I level, and then they quit because they found other things that they like to do. Success, right? I have players who became sports photographers because they realized that they weren't going to become a success, right? It's just a matter of like increasing your surface area playing the game and like getting access to opportunities because you've kind of pursued this idea of excellence, of like being a really good player nonstop, and like other kind of secondary effects came along with it. So it's that you don't have to go pro, you don't have to go college. There can be so many ways for success. For me, again, trajectory. It's just about trajectory, right? Did this play a role in like your upward trajectory in your young adolescence into your adult life?
100%. And I think that's so important, right? Because like how many players go real pro, like a fraction of the players that go, right? And like, same with myself, like everyone is doing sports. At some point in time, you have the goal of becoming a professional at that sport. And then there comes a time when you realize that that's not going to happen. And then what do you do? And personally, like I've been lucky to be able to work in and around my sport anyway in different functions. After I played, I started reffing for a while, and now I'm working on the equipment side. So I'm still very close to the sport, but I'm not good enough to play the sport on a professional level.
That's a success. That's a success. You know?
Yeah.
The only failure is like if you quit and you never thought about it again and you went and never really applied it to anything, right? And like, assuming you didn't have something else that you really wanted to do. But like, that's a massive success, you know? I always like to reference stories like yours, for example, like, hey, you don't need to go pro. Like, who knows? You might start a podcast. Who knows? You might be a pundit. You might be an influencer. Like, just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And talking about influencers and, you know, social media, you're working with young kids and you guys are pretty strong on social media as well, you know, reaching over 30 million organic views. And you mentioned in the beginning, you started with your camera and got viral. So how important has the whole content and social media aspect been for you guys?
It's been everything. That's how we built the business. It's actually 85% of players in our program discovered us on social media, right? And that's because you don't really get an inside look at what most teams and training programs do, right? Like they make some content, we make like raw, uncut content. Like this is exactly what our session looks like, right? And you create, I always say like good content creates FOMO. So how over and over again, reaffirming to somebody that they're missing out by not being at our sessions, right? So say, if you're the top 32 MLS, ECNL, street ballers, you need to be here, right? And then I show some kid playing for NYCFC that's training with us like an absolute maniac, you know, and like crazy footwork. And as a result, everyone applies to the program. And now it's just about expanding that influence geographically, right? Like getting more people to, we're tracking applications and where people apply from and what that means for, you know, the next markets that we look at.
This Monday.com ad was created by a team of people and AI agents. The agents wrote the copy and managed the timelines, while our human creative director made sure it all made sense. Easy. Create your own AI agent today on Monday.com.
Yeah. And do you also tell your players or encourage the players to use social media and building their brand?
100%. So we have one kid named Noah Hammerschmidt who's playing at Princeton next year, who's been making content and working for us for a year now. We got him involved in Nike Toma, and now he's really like an integral part of our team. And also just, again, going back to that point about proximity, like our core staff is now mostly graduating college or just graduated or playing at the next level. Like we slowly begin to fade out from the immediate proximity of the academy game. But for us, it's so important, especially in our content, showing like, hey, we're on the pulse at every age group. That guy, the U19 that they're all talking about at MLS Next Cup, like he's our guy. You know, he's a Youth4Youth guy. And then again, it creates the same sort of FOMO where it's like, oh, he's there, I got to be there too.
Yeah. No, I love that for sure. And I know that you're doing a lot of great things, and you mentioned Nike there, the partnership there, and also the one you host the college soccer showcase as well. So can you talk a little bit about some of the partnership and some of the events and stuff that you guys have put on?
Yeah, so for Nike, again, content. They saw our video in October, one of our videos, and they emailed me, and I thought it was a joke. I was like, what is this, Nike XY for Y? Like, what is this? I open the email, it's real. I go into the office, we have a good conversation, and they're basically like, hey, you're on the pulse. You have one of the biggest brands in youth soccer. Like, we understand you have operational capacity too. Like, you can put events on. Like, let's work together. I've always been a Nike guy. I always wore Nike boots, so I was unbelievably happy. First, we started sending a lot of players for their events, like for Toma. And then we did a free college showcase in January. Had 52 scouts come to watch our players, which is the largest free showcase ever. So we had 52 scouts. We selected 65 players from 700 applications, and 51 college offers went out, right? So it was a serious success. And I think from there, we went into further conversations with them, and then they brought us in Nike Toma. And then this is a whole different event for us in June, or I guess 3 weeks ago. We rented out an abandoned bank and did Nike Toma Tri-State. And we had 2,000 people come watch like street football, which was unbelievable. That for me was like the most fun event we've ever had, because I'm like definitely like a creative guy. Like I love thematic stuff. I love filmmaking. And that was the first time that like we did an event that had a real theme. It was like Italian mob boss, Toma la Familia is what we called it. And, you know, we got to do cool brand spots and like kind of rebranded it. Our socials are still rebranded right now because Toma Nationals are not happening tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, which is really exciting. So it's been great working with them. And we've also worked a lot with NYCFC. At some point, we had a partnership with IMG Academy, NCSA. But I think it's really about activating with the right brands that like understand who we are, right? And like aligning whatever activations we do with the brands, like just kind of aligning on that ethos.
Yeah. No, that's an incredible story. And as you said, like starting this at 16 and then being able to do these things now is that's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's a big organization, like how you said you have the capacity to put on these things. So how does the organization look like? Because I assume when you started it, it was you and perhaps a few more.
Some friends.
Yeah.
It's pretty lean, right? So we have a director of coaching, we have director of operations, me, and then we had a content guy like until the end of the year, and now we're finding a new content guy. And then we have like all our head coaches and kind of mentors and ambassadors. But yeah, there's really like day-to-day, and then we have like 2 interns. And then day-to-day operations. It's, you know, we're all learning, we're all young. It's a unique experience because we get to be in rooms with people who are not so young and not so inexperienced, right? But obviously, you know, you get in there and at first there's like an imposter syndrome, and then over time you start to realize like, hey, like these are just people who are really good at what they do and like have had the stars align, and like we could be the same, you know, and there's not too much of a difference. It's been, especially since like, you know, I'm 21 now, I started at 16, like in a lot of rooms with people much older than myself, and like you just get used to it. It is what it is. I like to say it's not about age, it's about velocity of experience. Yeah. You know, it's about how fast you're like failing and learning things and doing events and doing partnerships and like just bringing new people on. And I try to like live at that fast velocity of experience to, you know, kind of catch up with all the smart people around me.
I love that. And we'll get into some like advice for young kids later on. But before we get into your journey, so talking about youth sports, a big part of that are the parents, right? Mm-hmm. How do you believe that they can support their kids without getting in the way?
Yeah, I always say to the parents, if you're not a football expert, which chances are you aren't, right? You might be. In that case, like be my guest and take charge of the journey. They call it the good soccer parent asks the right questions and finds the right people to ask them. So find someone like us and says, hey, here's what we're thinking. Here's our hypothesis. What do you think? What do we need to work on? And like, that's a good parent. So the advice is always find the right person to ask the right questions. It's really hard to navigate the system, and I don't expect any parent to have to navigate it, right? Like, that's not a great expectation. And so just find the right people as well. Know where your kid is at, push them, but always make sure that they're self-motivated. I see parents pushing their kids, and then eventually the kids are like, hey, I don't want to do this. You've been pushing this upon me. So I think it's important to keep the right level of motivation between you and the kid. Like, hey, you should go play, but not, we need to train 3 times today. Otherwise, like, you're not getting better. I think the self-motivated ones are the ones who last the longest.
Yeah, I believe that too, 100%. That of course you should be supportive, but as you said, you shouldn't be that pushy if they don't want to.
Yeah.
Then the drive must come from within them. For sure.
100%.
So let's get into your journey. You mentioned you started this at 16, but how did you get interested in soccer? How did this idea come up to start a company, and how's it been since?
My family, as I said, is Italian, so it was a natural kind of thing that I fell into. It's funny, my dad actually played rugby. He was on the youth national team for Italy in rugby. But all my family friends are Italian as well, and so I really got into it through them. I became a massive Milan fan, AC Milan, from a very young age. So Zlatan is my favorite player ever, and I'm gonna meet him tomorrow, so I'm buzzing.
Really?
He's running. Yeah, he's running Como here, so I'm gonna be face to face with him all day. It's gonna be a good time.
Awesome.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I read his biography as well. Super excited. Became a massive Milan fan. Started playing around like 5, 6 years old. Played for a bunch of different clubs. Always was self-motivated with the game. Like, my parents really didn't care, and I think that's also part of the reason I got to the level I got to was just because I was doing my own thing. Never did any supplemental services. So I never did anything like Youth4Youth. I've had one private training session in my life. And I think it was just about, I understood at a young age, like, you need more touches, right? And so I always was going to the park with my friends. I played a lot of pickup in New York. I like to say, like, New York actually a really incredible football culture that like is parallel to some of the European cities, and it's continuing to grow. Start playing academy, kind of climb up the ranks, spent a lot of time at a high level, loved it, knew the pro journey wasn't going to work out, thought about the fact that I'd spent 10,000 plus hours around the game, training, just like being obsessed with it. How do I translate that into something that's impactful, for myself and the people around me? And I realized also, like, what was I missing? And that's around when I'm 16 years old. I had a school project. So I started this right for that school project. And then that was 5 years ago. So a little over 5 years ago, and kind of just started working at it, committed to play college. And then I ended up going to school, never playing, like had a whole crazy college process. But it was really this summer going into college. So this is 3 years ago that I was like, okay, I'm going to go in on this, like, I'm going to really take this and try to push to the next level. And I always say, like, word on my sleeve, like, I was always, Youth4Youth, when we had like 300 followers on Instagram, and my friends were kind of like, this guy, posting on my social media, so like on my personal ones. And then I think that's also part of the reason that it grew to where it did, like, and where, I mean, for me, I'm still in beta mode. Like, there's so much more to do, right? And I think it's important we like maintain humility and like awareness of where we're at in comparison to where we can be. But it's definitely been great, like, compared to where we were 3 years ago. Like, it's, people are like, oh, like, I remember when you're posting and not stop, and it was like super annoying, and now you're doing these cool things. I'm like, yeah, thanks to just every day waking up, posting content, talking to players, hiring coaches, trying to build community, and the rest kind of follows, and the stars align.
Yeah. How much operational are you still now?
So I'm way less operational than I ever have been. I have a pretty good operational staff. I'm very operational on the content side and like marketing side. It's been hard to like build the right staff that can really replicate that and like the truth to the brand and the ethos and the experience that we kind of convey. But I still coach. I like coaching. Like, I try to coach once or twice on the weekends. I have obviously a big coaching staff, so now it's a lot easier. I kind of just show up to the session's built out. Like, they give me kind of a briefing on what the session is, what the target is, and I go there and I coach. But I really, when I coach, I really coach. Like, kind of, I like to say, like, light a fire under the kids, and just like, even though it's supplemental sessions, like, always competing. But yeah, the truth is, like, in order to grow, I've had to learn how to become less and less operational, which is just a necessity.
Yeah. But it can be hard, right? To let go.
It's very hard. I think to this day, it's like, it's the hardest thing. Now I think I've finally hit a breaking point where it's like, I know that that's what has to happen. The thing that really changed my perspective, someone said to me, if they can do it at 80% the level that you can do it, you should not be doing it. Right. And that really changed my mindset, was like, oh, yeah, kind of like expecting perfection from everyone on every little thing you do. That's just not going to happen. Right. And that the wheel will not turn. Having that realization has really helped. And just continuing. Now it's about finding the right people. So always just growing the staff and finding the right people who not only like can execute on your ideas, but can challenge them and bring in new ones. Right. Like that's right now what I'm really seeking.
Yeah. And I'm curious also about like starting it at 16, you said like you're in school, then you're going to college. How do you juggle starting a company, growing a company with school, with college, and like everything else that goes on when you're a teenager?
The truth is I don't, right? It's about like taking phone calls on the bike on the way to training, which is not safe. I don't recommend. But like that, it's these little things. It's about eating lunch on team calls, like that kind of thing. But the truth is, like, I've realized when I try to work with focus. There actually is a lot of time in a day in my mind. But in the beginning, I was really scattered about it. And I would like work 20 minutes here, 40 minutes there, an hour there. And then I realized, it's good to just kind of wake up and get all the things you need to get done, and then go on your calls, play the long game, right? In the beginning, you want to work like 15 hours a day, but then you start to realize that's not sustainable. It's been hard with school. I won't say like I'm honestly at this point like a very part-time college student. I took time off, then I came back. I went back and forth to Rhode Island, which is like 4 hours away, 14 times in like 3 months this past semester. It's not easy, but it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. And the way I always look at it is like, opportunities don't last forever. And it's like, there's a window of opportunity for everything. There's a window of opportunity to like build out these events, to work with all the cool people. Like, and so just capitalizing while we can. The biggest thing I don't want is almost like, sometimes you work more out of regret, like out of the fear of regret, being like, oh, I didn't take advantage of that while I could. And so that's I'll always remind myself of that.
Yeah. So if someone with the last 5 years of experience now that you have, if someone is listening and they want to get into the industry or maybe want to become an entrepreneur, what's some advice that you have for them?
I think just know what you're in for, test it out, see if you can do like a 1 month test, work on it every day. And if there's any days in that first month that you don't want to work on it, then you shouldn't be doing it. That's why I said back to the first point, like when you start, there's an obsessiveness that propels you to want to do 15 hours a day. And at some point you have to learn how to suppress that and make it more just like professionalized. Like, yeah, it's a job, like you wake up at a reasonable time and do it. So I think it's just like, go at it though. There's no way to start other than starting. And I think that's the realization I had, like when I did this, it was just like, what am I going to think about doing things? I always wanted to be like an entrepreneur. And I was talking about that when I was younger, how I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And then I think the moment I was like of legal age to do it, I did. I have a lot of, like, I always look back, I'm like, I thank my old self for just kind of getting started, because I could have got started now and I'd be 5 years behind where I ended up being.
I think that's the biggest lesson, right? It's the same with this podcast. I tell it all the time. I started with 0 experience in this. I have no background in journalism, media, like interviewing, anything. But you have to get started, right? And then you work on it so you get a little bit better every time. Like atomic habits, like 1% every day, you get a little bit better, right? And as you said, if you would have started now, okay, you would have been a little bit older, a little bit more mature, but you would still be 5 years behind.
Yeah, exactly. And you learn as you do. I'm sure when you had your first podcast, you made so many mistakes and you're like, oh, shoot, I shouldn't have done that. But then you just kind of don't make them again. And then you make the next mistake and so on. But you cannot learn unless you do, which is awesome. There's also something to realize, like, it doesn't take a superhuman to do things like this, to like start a business or start a podcast. Like, there's obviously a couple of things that you'll need, but I think if you're relentless enough, you can compensate for any other gaps that you might have. I know founders who are really shy. I know founders who they don't love like networking and they don't love building relationships. Like, there's so many different things that you can kind of compensate for, but you need to know by going.
Yeah. Has there been any bumps on the road thus far, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, there's bumps every day. There's bumps every single day. I think some of the biggest bumps have been with people, like people coming in and out. Some people just come like leave because they have other things. Other people, like, it wasn't working. Just keeping the right people around. I like to say the biggest bump was my first training ever. A kid got a physical bump. He got hit with a baseball line drive to the temple. and he was okay. But like the kid went down, started screaming. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, I'm never doing this again. First session, I'm never doing this again. But thank God the kid was okay. And his mom called me 3 weeks later. She's like, hey, like, are you available for another session? And I think that was kind of the universe telling me, like, go, you know, just like, don't get down on it, just go. There's a lot of times where things happen and you just kind of want to quit. A lot of parents are really hard on you. I think over time, the dynamic has flipped, right? Because when you have 30 parents and 30 players, you know, and like 30 sets of parents, like each one of those, it's really important to like make sure they're all super happy. And then at a certain point, realize like, hey, our program, like we're confident in what we're delivering you. If you're not happy with it, we want to talk to you. We want to make sure we deliver what's best. But if you're sitting here and saying like, my kid needs X, Y, and Z, and we think your kid needs something else, we know that we've had experience and success and like we can back ourselves on that. So there's definitely been more peace of mind on that. But yeah, I mean, naturally in the beginning, a lot of headaches. And now it's to this day, you know, things happen this morning where I'm kind of cleaning up after mistakes for a few hours. Like it is what it is. And I always think like, all right, it's part of the game, you know, it's part of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep on going.
Yeah.
How can people, you know, if they haven't found you already on social media, website, like get in contact with you guys, how can they find you?
So if you just want to learn more, I always say social media is the best one for that. You can search up Y, like the letter, and then the number 4, and then YFC, Youth4Youth Football Club. And then if you want to apply to the program, there's also the link on that Instagram. But if you want to go direct application, it's that same set of letters, y4yfc.com/join. Send us your kind of player information, where you're from, your highlight tape, and then we'd be in touch from there.
That's awesome. Brando, it's been great chatting with you. Thank you so much for taking the time, and say hi to Zlatan for me tomorrow.
Yeah, I hope I get some one-on-one time. We'll see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Parkin. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsM Podcast.